more that we do this afternoon that has actually shifted inside you. A lot, profoundly, or a little bit. And you want to have something to say and not stare blankly at your partner who asks you. So please be thinking about what you're going to say for that. I want to give you a heads up. Second thing I wanted you to know is that we have to stop at 3. I need to honor your time and let you get on the road. So I'll stay and do questions. But to give you a break, it would take too much time away, so I'm not going to give you a break officially. You just get up. It's really okay. Go to the bathroom. Now, I also hope you're not used to sitting all day. If you are, I need to re-advise you about your role in education because you missed something in the training. So you are welcome, as a couple of you have already done, but more of you might want to do it in the afternoon. Just get up and lean against the wall, pace back and forth. We're going to do hot yoga over there, a spin class over there, calisthenics over here, whatever you want to do. Just don't block the screens. That'd be fine. But please feel free. It is not disrespectful to get up and just move around. I have no worries about that at all. You're invited to do that. To those of you who came up and asked questions during lunch, thank you so much. You're really thinking deeply, and I really appreciate you doing that. You're giving it a really good go. So today, I'm thinking that we're going to give you a running start. We're not going to answer all the questions, but we're going to give you a running start and actually thinking along these lines as we move forward. So, what was the very first principle?
Growth.
Oh, that was very good, very good, very good. Let's see if you can keep that up with all the other principles to come. So this one is about conflation. What is conflation? Anybody know? You're conflating those two things. What does that mean? Combining together, they really don't belong together, and there's some kind of false recognition or report of either one individually. You can't conflate this with that because it's confusing, not helpful. So we're going to try to avoid that. Well, let's take a look at some of the possibilities as you're paddling out in your canoe, navigating the waters of grading challenge. Right? I need to remind you that you have to decide, are grades communication or are they compensation? And that will change the way you see what we're doing. You can't do them simultaneously, but you can do them separately. And it really does have dramatic impact. So, I want to know if you can analyze the plot of a novel. I don't say book report 2, book report 3, and so on, or project 1. We've already kind of mentioned that. The ultimate, takeaway from that is that if you include the evidence of one thing in the report of this thing you claim to be reporting, ethics is a problem. You've knowingly distorted the truth. Now, one table group heard me say this, but I wanted to make sure we're very clear for the whole room. If you knowingly falsify the grade by including things that are not really indicative of the evidence you claim to be reporting, that's distorting the truth or the accuracy. What's that word we use in the Catholic Church and nationwide when somebody distorts the truth? Oh yeah, lying. And all of you, none of you have any moral authority, I don't either, to lie to children. So we don't ever want to knowingly falsify the grade. So that's what this slide is about. If you ask any teacher, do you think a grade should be accurate? They will always say yes. Never, they usually can say, no, I think you should go wrong. I like to mess things up. This is not a part of us. So I can't be inconsistent with my faith. I can't be inconsistent with professional values, my decency, my compassion, my integrity. It's just an individual working with children. So yeah, I can't knowingly falsify a grade. So if I come to you and I say, hey, look what you do with your grading there. You're doing this, but you're including these other things, and the grade's going up as a result. You've crossed the line. This happened to me earlier in my career. I had a kid who said, please, thank you, sir and ma'am, and opened doors for everyone. On a black ice February morning, do you know what I mean when I say black ice? Yeah. Okay, like school buses doing 360s. Okay, not good. So on black ice February morning, each arm had 2 shopping bags or crates filled with things I was going to use in school that day, and my lessons and so on. But I parked far away from the school. I just arrived sort of late, I guess. And what I was doing is I was standing on one foot. The door was open. I'm holding this. I have nothing. I can't reach anything with my hands. I'm trying to kick the door closed. So what's obviously going to happen any moment? I'm going down. This kid who said, please, thank you, sir and ma'am, was so nice, so thoughtful. He ran down the entire sidewalk in the front of the building. We had salted it, don't worry. He was trying to be safe. He was right there. And then when he got to the teacher parking lot, he skated over to me. And he said, here, Mr. Wormeli, let me help you. And he took 2 of the bags. He closed the door for me. At that moment, I realized he will marry my daughter if I have anything to say about it. Just so you know. He doesn't know that, she doesn't know that, but it's going to happen. And then the 2 of us, with just our 2 belongings in our arms, skated back over to the sidewalk that was salted and sanded, and then we actually walked into class and we were fine. But he was really nice. I wanted to reward him. So He had a D on a 6-week project. I gave him a C+. I want to know that nice guys finish up there. You get something for being nice. But I've knowingly falsified the grade, haven't I? He's a D student. If I do that, it creates humiliation because they think they know stuff that they really don't know. And it turns out a lot of grades are inflated falsely like that, and the kid goes on and becomes quite embarrassed because future teachers or professors in college think they are competent when really they are not. I should have said, you have a D, but you can totally change this if we don't work together, work really hard. We can kind of come out and do relearning, reassessing, and get it up to a B or an A if you really want to. That's great. Depends how hard you want to work here. And so, yeah, I could do that. Reverse this. I also did this. I'm embarrassed to share with you, but I'm hoping you'll go a different direction after you hear this and you don't do it yourself. I had a kid who was toxic, kind of a jerk. He was really high maintenance. I was really frustrated with him. When he's absent, I would lift up a silent prayer of thank you. And then I would tell the class, hey, so-and-so, he's not here today. We're going to learn a lot. Get your books out. We're going to do lots of pages today. We don't have to worry about it. I didn't say that. I thought it. Okay? Don't judge me. It was early in my career. All right. So at any rate, he got an A on every test. You're so high maintenance. You're such a, so frustrating. But you still keep getting 100%. So I gave him a C. I knowingly lied. I don't have any right to do that. I should give him an F in behavior. I should give him an A in the fact that you actually know your math. Because I'm reminding you again, augmenting that grade, falsifying it is not the gift. It is not helpful in the long run. What's helpful is accuracy. And when you disaggregate it out like that, the kid realizes, oh, I'm really poor behavior. I'm getting an A over here, but elsewhere in my report card, I'm getting an F. I don't like to get Fs. And so they care more about that particular thing. I'm reminding you that if you ever are in doubt, do I include it in the grade, do I not, always go back and look at your standards. Is it a part of the evidence? You can totally grade it. So, music programs. You must show up tonight to play in the concert, or you will have an F. I need everybody there in the ensemble to do this thing. You can't do that. Incredibly unethical, highly inappropriate. Stop it if you do it now. Right, please right away do that. Can I be more clear? I don't know if I can do that. But wait a minute, I can do this. Let's take a look at our standards you'll be demonstrating tonight at tonight's evening performance. It says, the capacity to perform in an ensemble and follow the direction of a conductor in a public event. Well, if you can't show up tonight, then you and your family will have to find another public event where you are performing the exact same kind of music we'll be performing, and for the endurance, we'll be performing here tonight. Does that sound really hard to do? Then show up! That's indirect bribery. I'm okay with that. But the standard never says, shows up to play in the evening concerts. It says the capacity to demonstrate musical dynamics, follow the directions of a conductor, and so on. And that's where I can give you a grade on it. So if you don't show up, I can't provide a way to give you evidence. And what's the symbol for no evidence? 0. F, or whatever it might be. So understand, this is really intense. And it can get to a solution very easily by separating it out. So we're reporting non-academics separately from academics. Well, I want to bust a myth right now. You go to the vegetable section. Yeah, the apples don't also include reports of oranges in there, assuming they're apples. And tomatoes and green beans and so on. There's 2 reasons we want to do this in school. We want to make sure that they count. And they count more when they have their own rendering. The kids actually care about it more. It's more an urgent thing. I must do well in that area too. And if I were to merge it all together, it would distort the truth. So I want to not misinform the report about something. Steve?
I think we're talking, I don't want to say apples and oranges here.
That'd be very apropos.
I think what I'm talking about with effort and deals with peers. You can tell they're not putting effort into studying, and you can see it coming.
Is that one of your standards? The degree to which to put effort into the math?
No.
Okay. I'll let you finish. Go ahead. I just want to make
So,
sure we're clear.
No, you can tell that their effort, and when you're going over the standards, when you're going to test them on the standards,
Yeah.
you can tell they're not focused, and you try to bring that up to them.
Yeah.
And they do poorly on the test.
Yeah.
Because they're not focused.
Right.
That's what I mean. And then where I get a little confused. I get the idea that you want to do the best for them and test and teach that, but then I guess the fine line becomes, where does it become enabling versus there's a great lesson to teach that you weren't paying attention. I brought that to your attention. I could see the train wreck coming and allow the train wreck to come to allow him to learn that lesson. And if you're always retesting when you see that, are they getting that lesson?
Right. So one of the things I've tried to recommend to you, and I've told you that in the motivation mosaic, how do you teach self-discipline, how do you teach how to put effort into something when your heart's not really there. Some adults need to learn that too. How do you respect the deadlines, how to get your act together to meet those deadlines. All that other stuff teaches you in very practical ways how to teach that. So when you say, how do you teach that? That's that other seminar that's beyond the purview of today. The question is, if you were to define what is a grade supposed to report, most teachers would say standards, the actual standards themselves. Not stuff used to get you to the standard, but the standards themselves. So now, is my standard the degree of effort, the amount of homework you produced? The assignment? No, it's not. So if I include that in here and it makes the grade go higher or lower, that's still not going to help that kid mature and grow in the effort thing. The message will not be received like you want it to be received. What I'm suggesting to you from the world of cognitive science and how kids learn, and what we know about motivation is that when it has a separate radar, they actually mature and get to the effort faster than if you mix it in. So like, for example, I'm going to count your achievement in this, but I'm also going to weave into that the amount of effort and whether you were prepared and all these different things. It's sort of a message to make sure it matters. And I'm suggesting to you that it actually matters more importantly when it's separately rendered, and it also prevents you from doing something unethical, which is knowingly falsifying a grade. So I think it's inaccurate to say, well, he showed a tremendous amount of effort, so the grade went up, but he actually didn't demonstrate the mastery. Because it can't be allowed to influence the grade.
I'm confused.
Okay, well, I still have more to go on this one. And then we'll confuse you even further as I do that. So let's take a look at it. I said you have to have 1-inch margins. He has 3-inch margins and wrote a really narrow column in the middle. He wrote all the way to the edges of the paper. He wrote as a circle. You have to read it like a spiral and keep turning the paper and keep reading it. He was all over the place, not following directions. But what am I grading? I'm grading, can he write well? Does he have a strong writer's voice or something like that? So now I give you the grade for writer's voice, but I give you a separate grade for scholarly presentation or follows directions. Am I grading that you were compliant, you did activities as I assigned, or am I grading that you actually learned the standard? Second example, using a color printer, I need you to draw the graph and interpret the data from the graph correctly. I'm grading you on the capacity to build and interpret a graph. He uses black and white printer. He uses hand-drawn with a ruler. But he still does the graph perfectly and interprets it correctly. I am beholden to say, yeah, you did really well. You didn't follow directions all the way to show a scholarly aesthetic that's pleasing to the viewer by using a color printer, but you actually satisfy the evidence of the evaluative criteria of the standard. Those will be reported separately. So what if a kid is terrible at spelling? Terrible at conventions, noun, verb agreement, capitalization. He is a mess, but he nailed the organization and ideas and the argument he was making in a paragraph or a paper. I give you a grade on that separately from conventions. We will work on conventions intensely. And what happens is when kids have that disaggregated, they know where to spend their time and energy, how to laser focus and improve on that. Rather than saying, hey, writing a paragraph, you're like a D. Well, he actually nailed all the ideas, but he did poorly in this one thing, conventions. So I'm letting the report of one thing be conflated with the report of something else, and it actually knowingly falsifies the grade. So the wagon is bringing the pumpkins, baby. It's pumpkin season. So I'm not grading the wagon, I'm grading the pumpkins, the fruit, the vegetable, whatever is being brought in. It's a conveyance vehicle to deliver the evidence. So if there's something peripheral, something kind of outside that allowed you to get to the pumpkins there, understand that I'm really going to just give a report on pumpkins, not the way that they were delivered to me. If I'm overtly teaching the delivery system, then there's non-negotiable. I'm going to grade you on that delivery system. Here's an example. I want you to write a persuasive paragraph, or paper, your choice. And some kid goes,
I know you let us do alternative assessment sometimes. So instead of persuasive paragraph, I like to do a persuasive diorama. I'm not teaching diorama. I'm literally teaching this product. You have to write the paragraph. Okay, wait. How about persuasive puppet show? I have very persuasive puppets that will convince you of anything.
That's a little creepy, but no, I'm not teaching puppetry. You have to do the paragraph.
Okay, I would like to do a poster on persuasion for the Library Media Center.
No, I'm not doing, you have to do the paragraph. But if I wasn't assessing the format itself, it's irrelevant. If you give me a proposal and I can show the same evidence, then I'm fine with that. You could do an interpretive dance if you needed to, because I'm chasing evidence, not the compliance used or the conveyance used to kind of get it there in that particular moment. This is that slide that kind of speaks to this, but also remind you of the comment I made before. If students don't do the work, it doesn't mean they didn't learn the stuff. It has nothing to do with what it's what you know and can do at journey's end. It really is the greatest indicator for a statement of mastery, not the routes you took to get to that point. We're going to see a graphic of that coming up very quickly. So what if a kid does no homework ever? I mean, passive-aggressive defiance, he just doesn't do homework or classwork, yet he gets an A on every single test. What grade should he get in the class? Say it's a math class if you want, or a science class, or English, whatever. What grade should he get? Well, let's back up. What do you think I would say that he should get? A. What often happens, he gets less than an A because he wasn't compliant and obedient to the teacher, and I want to teach him obedience. This is a false understanding of what teaches obedience and maturity and executive function. To say, I will knowingly falsify the grade. No research anywhere says falsify the grade if you want to teach responsibility. They actually, in fact, say you were in the wrong when you do the deeper dive. So, I just want you to think about this. If the kid could learn to this level of proficiency without doing the homework you thought was so pivotal to their success as to assign, who's the slow learner? You are. I am. Because homework should have mattered. And obviously it didn't matter. What you were assigning was busy work. He could escape that classwork and still learn to that level, then why were you assigning that? Reverse it. What if a kid does a beautiful job at all the homework but bombs every test? Don't you wonder whose homework it is you're marking? And don't you worry mom and dad use the wrong pronoun in a parent-teacher conference?
We worked on that for 2 weeks.
Did you say we? No we. He, she, no we. Because homework is supposed to be practiced if it has already been vetted as learned. Never to learn it the first time, and never to be the final demonstration of mastery that's included in high-stakes evaluation at journey's end. It is formative, not summative. Oh, well that's what this slide says. That it's supposed to be a safe place to wrestle, get critique, and you're allowed to revise in light of that critique and improve your learning. But it's not held against you as a high-stakes thing, i.e. it's not graded. So I want you to be very clear. Don't misquote me. I think homework should count 100%. Be very clear when I say that. 100% of its own column. 0 in what you know about red blood cells, or coding in Python, or the Trinity, or Spanish preterite coding. DBQ response is a document-based question for high school, or AP course of some sort. Yeah, so we're separating them out. So our report cards always have, you have a 95% homework completion rate, and then here's your academic, or whatever it might be. So now we can say, oh, hard work yielded this, like we alluded to earlier, right?
I agree completely with that. That makes
That's wonderful.
What I still don't understand is the reason why they didn't do well on a test is because they didn't prepare for the test.
Right, so then I have to go back and go, hey, whatever you chose to do, whatever decisions you made to get ready for the test, didn't work for you, did it? Because here's your report of the performance. So then we have to decide, is this so important? It's one of the big standards, one of the half of the secondary standards. Is this so important? You actually need to go back and learn it. I'm not going to let you escape the burden of your learning. So we're going to go back and do a whole relearning cycle again. Oh, plus while we're doing the new curriculum, so I understand you have no free time, I have you, but you need to learn this. I'm not going to let you escape it because you made bad decisions early on. Go ahead.
We tried this like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe we didn't do it for long enough, or the dynamics of such but it became really a logistics issue.
Oh, yeah, it can be.
Overwhelming, and then it became, because I read parts of your book are dealing with, why are we expecting adult things from
Oh,
children?
yeah.
That I get, but there's also some middle school behavior where they catch the system and go.
You can game any system, absolutely.
So it becomes.
But there are
time to
things that
set
you can
up.
do to make it experiential. For example, when I taught middle school, quite often I had to have experiential learning. What does that mean? What is the value of homework? Homework is not to learn it. Homework is to actually retain it in the long term. So I had to do this. All right, half of you, I have to promise you will never do homework. Seriously, I'm going to send it home to your parents. I'm not allowed to do homework in my class for like 2 weeks. No homework, not allowed, never. And they're like, okay, this is really weird. The other half of you have to do homework. And what we're going to do, at the end of 2 weeks, we're going to take a quiz on this material and see which group does better to see if homework really matters in your success. And so, okay, we'll do that. And yeah, they're pretty legit. They want to make sure the experiment is run properly and everything. So finally, I give them a quiz. Which group does better? The one that did no homework or the one that did homework? Anybody know? Which group would do better? They did exactly the same. And so the middle school kids like, homework doesn't matter. Yeah, you've been doing this, all the teachers have been doing this. We don't need to do homework. See, we can still learn it. That's great. And I go, oh, darn, you are so right. I feel so bad. Very fake acting, right? Oh, well, the next unit, you can do the homework or not. We'll see how it goes. I am chagrined. That's one of our new vocabulary words. Whatever it is, right? But that was not the end of the experiment they thought it was. But a month or 3 later, I actually do a surprise pop quiz on that 2-week little segment. On that content, which group does better? The one that did homework. Homework is about long-term retention. It is never about learning it. But here's the secret. Every time you do it, by the way, I've done that about every other year I've taught. I have done that little experiment. But here's the secret. All the kids who were told you can't do homework, what did they do in my class? And they sit at their table groups where they're like, you guys, shut up. Mr. Wormeli, go ahead. They're totally focused. They walk into my class mumbling everything because they're trying to remember it to prove they don't need to do homework. I got you to be attentive. So they're going on, Animalia cordata felicide, cat. Oh, nomenclature, taxonomic reference. They're trying to remember everything. Oh, when you divide fractions, you flip the second one, use the reciprocal and multiply. Oh, okay. You have to turn mixed numbers into improper fractions before you do some of that. So, I still get it. They're trying to prove, but they are actually unusually attentive. So we're starting to learn a skill in that. One of the things that opens this up and makes the proof that doing homework and classwork and following directions really matters is executive function. And if you take what we know about middle schoolers, but you took the name away, middle schoolers, young adolescent, early adolescents, and you said, there's a group of people who act like this, who have these behaviors, and you took the descriptions of executive function, people who struggle with executive function, and you took away all the identifying features or names that said executive function fails, or whatever it might be, and you overlaid them, they line up perfectly. One of the things I've done with adult friends who struggle with executive function things, organization, all kinds of other stuff, is I do middle school stuff with them. I suggest it, but I don't tell them it's middle school because then they won't do it. I just say, here's a suggestion from cognitive psychology. Rick, that works so well. Thank you so much. And I think, I do that with 7th graders. Well, I don't say that, but I'm thinking that inside my head. So understand, I would suggest you get up to speed on how do you get middle school behaviors and middle school executive function building and cultivating. Executive function comes online in the mid-20s. What ages do we teach? Younger than that, by a lot. And so it's going to be intermittent at best. But there are so many sound ways that don't get in the way of unethical grading, and accurate grading, and equitable grading, that really would help a kid be able to sort themselves out and start paying attention and doing the task analysis as much as possible. But for purposes of today, we're about accurate communication. So can I just remind you, this teacher is looking at this, and she's thinking, what do they always have in common? As you look through this, do you think it would be positive for a kid to be able to do these things? Yeah, it's very scholarly, very grown up. I think that's great. But what is she teaching? She's teaching spreadsheets, if you look in the caption bubble. What do you notice about all of these over here, though? They have nothing to do with spreadsheets. Do you notice? So she's concerned. She puts her hands up in supplication. Help me. I need help with this. But wait, these are all important. I don't want them to think they're not important. So I need to include them in my assessments. But then she realizes, coming closer to her camera and really looking more determined, hey, give them their own radar. So this is a high school actually in Georgia. And what I'm recommending you do, because it works really well, is that you locally decide, sit down, what 5 or 6 things do we value? This school valued remains calm in the face of challenge. You see that second one from the bottom. Meets deadlines. Takes initiative. When they don't understand something, they come and ask questions. That was something really, really important. We wanted them to do that. Without being told, without being prompted, you would do that. It was valuable. And then give it its own radar. Kids will mature faster. Admissions officers in colleges love to see the support from high school. I know you're not doing high school, but I'm telling you, other stakeholders value this because you get a real sense of the student when it's reported separately, but you have to sit down together and define what these things are. Like class participation, some kid's really talkative but says very little, right? Some kid doesn't talk a lot, but yeah, it says it. So what do you do? Well, you have to add something to conversation. Okay, you said it was a greenhouse. I said it was a house. I say it was a greenhouse. I added color. That's a little tally point for me. Now they're gaming the system. So we don't want that to happen. So we really have to be very careful and calibrate giving evidence for each of those, not just saying, I'll leave it to the teacher's whimsy to decide whether or not they're doing it. And I do like what Lisa was saying earlier, that in math class it might be very different than it is in social studies or PE. So maybe we kind of look at what's going on in those classes if they're not working so well for them. But this is this idea of don't conflate one thing with another. So to help with this, I'm making a suggestion of 3 different separations. If you can do 1 or 2 of them, that'd be great. So put the spices in different bowls as you lay it out. That's what I'm trying to say. One is, could you take an experimental time this year and separate all the work habit stuff from the actual academia? That'd be great. Just experiment with that. Second, could I separate, here's formative coming to know stuff, here's final judgment stuff, that's summative. And the last one, for your own sake, maybe in your mind or literally in the grade book if you can, could you separate doing stuff from learning stuff? And see how it feels, Goldilocks, just right or too loose, too tight, or too hot, too cold. See if you can find that ground that feels okay to you to do that. In the very first year of getting into this is what a lot of people start doing to kind of feel comfortable with it. So I'm just recommending it to you as something to do. And what do I do in my first year? That would be it. Now there's a very close cousin to this that helps support it. So I'm going to do this one real quickly and then we'll pause and see if you have some questions as we do that. This is a kid, I'm doing this with high schools too, so I had to choose some age group. So I just chose like a young high school kid. But it could be a young 8-year-old, it doesn't really matter. It could be a middle schooler, it doesn't matter. But here's the kid at one side, and here are my standards on the other. I'm teaching subduction zones. So plates of Earth's crust go under and over each other, causing volcanoes, earthquakes, things like that. In the middle is my river of lesson plans. Look at all the kids lighting up their many epiphanies and discoveries during the course of our lesson. This is so wonderful, but this kid, it's not working. You can look at his face, he seems overwhelmed. So now I have 3 choices. Choice number 1, I can do a completely alternative methodology that runs parallel to the rest of the class and what they're doing. Once in a while it'll cross over, do the same thing like railroad tracks, but notice where the light blue arrow ends up. You see where it ends up? Where is that? At the learning target, the standard. Choice 2, I can do the same lesson plans, but I provide different degrees or types of support. And each of those 4 pictures is supposed to like be a symbolism or stand-in or analogy for support offered to something else. You do the same support, but you eventually get there. Where does the red arrow end up? At the learning target. Ooh, keep going. This is good, good. You're getting the pattern. Third choice, you need a mentor, somebody a little bit more intensive, longer timeline, more iteration. Maybe you have to do it 5 times before you get it right, 17 times, or just twice. Whatever it is, where does the green arrow end up? At the learning target. Now looking very carefully at the screen, wherever you are in the room, look at the screen, here it comes, big red X! None of this has anything to do with the grade. What? This is how you get to the grade. So wait a minute, what does that mean? It means the grade is what you know and can do at journey's end, not the steps or the path you walked to get there. That's not in the standards. We grade against standards, not teacher methodology, which means teacher techniques are now suspect. They're reported separately. They're never included in the academic grade. So what's in there? Classwork, homework, wait for it, here it comes, group projects. Oh, group projects are awesome. You should do them. But Spencer Kagan, Robert Slavin, Johnson & Johnson, the biggest names in group projects are the first people to tell you, you never use a group project grade just as any one child against any one standard. You do a trust, but verify. You do an assessment outside of the group project to see what they took away. You do a jigsaw activity or maybe a media presentation, and you've got like, all right, the first kid does the first 4 slides, the second kid does the next 4 slides, the third kid does the next 4 slides, but you still give them a test. Let's say it was all in Germany. I'm now going to be doing exports and imports of Germany. I'm going to be doing cultural references, in the milestones in Germany. I'm going to be doing money in Germany and life in a school classroom. Okay, I will do a test outside of that, and I'll test them on everything about Germany, not just your one little segment. So understand, I don't know where one kid's influence ends and another begins, and you grade against individuals and the standards, not the group. So, reading log minutes, classwork, homework, all that stuff, they count 0. And if you're hearing that going, they won't do it if you got 0. Here's my Virginia term, my polite term, buffalo bagels and poppycock. In other words, it doesn't hold up according to close scrutiny. We know better than that in our profession. Let's do a deeper dive why middle school, elementary, high school, whatever it is, why they do work. And the fear or lure of the grade book makes grades coercive and about bribery, not about communication. And it undermines all we've learned about what we can do to improve grading. We don't want to do that. Here's an example, sort of like one we talked about this morning, but a little bit different. This is a blow-up of a test with 20 problems on one side of a sheet of paper this size. Just like 20 problems, that's a lot, right? But I get kids with visual acuity issues, easily distracted like ADHD or executive functions issues, or visual acuity, learning disabilities, and so on. I just want to test you on the math. Not your capacity to do math, but also overcome all of the visual acuity issues, the learning disabilities, and the distractibility things that are so prevalent. So what do? I actually train kids on interlocking L's. This is tag board, or a poster board, that is thick-armed with a slot, or a slit, depending on what you call that, right there in the middle. That's what the black line is. So now, the arm of one goes into the slot of another, and you have a collapsing or expanding aperture, an opening, and the kid, when he's looking at a lab, computer code, nonfiction, fiction, math problems, doesn't matter, he can move it around the page and really only focus on the laser section there, which is a great way for a kid to learn. I'm so distracted by so many other things, I can't keep track of it, but he can now take the test, do his homework, whatever it is, by really laser focusing, and he can really be more